What's up, everyone? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, and there's a lot of talk right now about how much of a bad situation Microsoft is in for we'll call it foreseeable future. As it stands at the moment, they don't really have anything good or killer announced or lined up for the end of 2018. Now, that will probably change, of course, because we're not even in the end of 2017 yet. So we'll see how all that goes. It's still subject to change, but it's still a pretty bad situation, and it doesn't look like it's going to improve for the moment. Now, I'm not going to. The next point I'm going to bring up, and the main focus of this video, isn't something I'm going to comment on per se. As weird as that sounds, like, how do you make a video about something without commenting on it per se? Well, I'm not here to talk about if this is or isn't going to happen, but I'm going to talk about why it would be a bad thing if it did happen and why it's a good thing if it doesn't happen. So the main focus I want to put on that is, what if Microsoft pulled out of the console market? And again, I don't think they're going to do that, but I'm not here to comment on that part of it. But I am here to look at why it would be a bad thing and why it's a good thing that they're here, even if they're not doing the best, and as it is. So the main reason why it would be a bad thing is when companies get complacent. They don't innovate, they don't revolutionize, they don't evolve, they just keep in a holding pattern as it is. So there's numerous other reasons why it'll be bad for that thing to happen as well, but we'll get to those in a minute. But the main reason for it is that companies would just get stagnant and gaming would get stagnant, and we'd see we don't even see much improvement as it goes along nowadays, but we'd see even less if this was the case. Let me give you an example. Because Microsoft, as it stands at the moment, at least in the console space, are significantly lagging behind the PlayStation 4 and Sony's offering. By comparison, the PlayStation 4 has roughly 70 million units sold, and the Microsoft systems have about 30 million units sold. So they need to do what they can. Microsoft, that is, need to do what they can to appeal to customers, come up with new features, come up with new, be it games exclusives, come up with new whatever, new policies, new practices, new features, new passes, new subscriptions, whatever. Now, I realize I said subscriptions in there. It's not the most pleasing word for me to use. But the point is that it's driving innovation in a sense. It's forcing a company to do something in reaction to entice new customers and to sweeten the pot for existing customers. Because let's look at Sony on their front. Sony are giving us basically nothing. Why? Because Sony are so far ahead, they figure, fuck it, we don't need to give anyone anything extra, anything to sweeten the pot, anything to entice people to buy our consoles. More than likely, there's a 2 out of 3 chance that they're going to buy our console as it is. So we won't give them backwards compatibility. We'll shit talk and downplay backwards compatibility like no one wants it and how it's beneath us and all that shit. As well as extra features and extra other stuff that they're, well, not including because they just feel like they don't need to. They just say, fuck it. People are buying us the way we are. Why do we need to change anything to get more sales or whatever? They just can't be bothered. But if Microsoft were hot on their heels, let's say Sony were still at the 70 million mark. Let's say Microsoft were at 65 million units and possibly growing. If they're at a relatively close pace versus the massive discrepancy we see now, there would be a hell of a lot of different actions coming out of the Sony camp, because Microsoft have done huge amounts of things over the last couple of years, ever since they've started losing this generation of console sales. They've done a huge amount of policy changes, a huge amount of new initiatives and features and stuff like that, just to try win people over, not just to keep their existing customers happy, but to try entice people into their system and their ecosystem with things like backwards compatibility on 360, backwards compatibility for OG Xbox games, which is coming soon, decent value programs that personally don't appeal to me, like the Xbox Game Pass. There's a bunch of other stuff as well, but those are some of them, just to name but a few. Hell, they've even gone into the whole crossplay thing with Nintendo and to an extent PC. The PC version is kind of up in the air because a lot of it is Microsoft Windows 10 stuff anyway. But the point is that they're embracing that kind of stuff in order to catch up, to give a little bit of competition, a little bit of push for their system. What have Sony given us because they're so far ahead? Nothing. So, you see what I mean? It's a bad thing because let me give you other examples where this happens. In the computer market, the PC hardware market, Intel has been dominant for about 10 years now when it comes to home processors. Not even home processors, just laptop processors, home processors, just processors in general. Intel have been basically the dominant force for the last 10 years or so. It only happened that a few months ago in 2017 where AMD finally released, that's right, finally, for the first time in about 10 years, released a chip or a chip line that was actually finally a comparable option to what Intel had to offer. Intel seemed to have no contingency for this and kind of flailed around after it, but the point is, over the last maybe about 7 or 8 years, every year Intel's offering was minuscule and it was only a small upgrade. For the simple reason is they didn't need to go balls to the wall. They didn't need to go ham just developing all this new architecture and new technology because they're already so far ahead that even if they put out a minuscule upgrade, it will still be so far ahead than what any other company has to offer. Again, same deal with Nvidia and AMD as well in the graphics card market. Over the last, I'd say again, about 10 years or so, Nvidia has just been completely dominating the market, and it's happening yet again with the AMD graphics cards. The latest AMD 2017 graphics cards can't even stand up to the 2016 Nvidia GPUs, and it's been like this for again the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and that's why every year for the most part we'll see, oh, the new Nvidia graphics card is out, 10% performance gain over the previous year. And it's just like that. There's no competition, there's no incentive for companies to go the extra mile to try develop even more bang for your buck for customers, even in the case of consoles like Xbox and PlayStation and the features they add. If there's no incentive for a company to do it, they won't do it. And because of that, you get less features, you get less out of it at the end. You basically get shafted. It's that simple. And that happens on the game front too. For example, if Microsoft were to pull out of the Xbox One market in general, sure, they would still probably half-heartedly make PC games. I don't think they'd go full focus. I just think they'd give a half-hearted attempt as they kept going with it. But not only would we lose our favorite, or for the most part, we'd lose our favorite franchises like Gears of War, Forza, Halo, etc. Again, we would have what I feel would be not properly funded and half-hearted developed on PC versions, but at the same time I don't think Microsoft would go third party. And because of that, you would see on the PlayStation front, most likely they wouldn't give as huge as a budget and a focus of, we'll call them development resources, into some of their bigger first-party, higher-profile games, because they don't need to. They don't need to say, we have these amazing blockbuster first-party AAA games that you can't get anywhere else. They might just cut down the budget a little bit. They might cut down the development time a little bit, because at the end of the day, if they don't need to revolutionize and entice you, they will most likely do the bare minimum or slightly over it just to keep you happy or get your money. And of course, that goes back to the whole thing with, people would potentially lose friends because, maybe you have all your friends on Xbox, but you have to move over to PlayStation, and whoever doesn't want to move over to PlayStation or whatever it is, that's you possibly lose someone on that. Not only that, but you have the monetary investment as well. It's like, oh, I spent €500 on an Xbox One X and I've bought dozens of games over the years, and now I have to go to PlayStation 4 and rebuy a PlayStation 4 Pro and a bunch of games. So again, that's another monetary investment as well that can be obviously a bad thing. But overall, the main focus of this video that I want to drive home is the lack of competition breeds laziness, and the lack of competition and the lack of actual threat of losing your sales position or your numbers position, your popularity position, whatever it is, that just makes you stagnate. Again, look at what Sony have offered in the feature department. There's basically nothing. Look at what Microsoft have offered by comparison to try catch up, to try entice people. You can see they're actually trying because they need to. Whereas Sony don't need to do anything. They're still getting those sales, and well, it is what it is. So if you've made it this far into the video, of course by now, if you're a regular here, or hopefully you can surmise it from this video if you're not a regular, that I am not a Microsoft fanboy. I'll look at everything objectively, because the main reason I didn't include Nintendo in this, for the most part, is Nintendo aren't really a threat. They're not really a comparison in this equation as it stands at the moment. But I'm sure you can understand what I've said here is valid and objective, and it makes perfect logical sense. So let me know in the comment section below what you think about Sony's current position and their whole almost stagnation with features and extra stuff that they've had to offer versus what Microsoft have been doing to try entice us and to try get people who aren't already in their ecosystem into their ecosystem. And what do you think will be some potentially positive, though there's not really any positive, or potentially huge important negatives that would happen if Microsoft were to pull out of the console market, which again, I don't think will happen. I know I've said it that I won't talk about it in this video, but I won't go into detail about it. But yeah, it is what it is. So let me know all of that in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.